guys, so Alyssa here over at Books and Cats, and today I shall be doing my September and October wrap-up. So technically I still have 3 days left in October, but there are already a lot of books that I need to talk about. So if I manage to read 1 or 2 more books this month, if I'm that lucky, I'm going to talk about it in November because there's too many already. So normally how I do it is I tend to do my wrap-ups based on what I rated them. I do most favorite to least favorite, and I'm going to do it per month. So I'll start with September and then I'll talk about October, and I'll do them within those months because trying to combine them and place them all is just too much work right now. September was an alright reading month. I read a decent amount. I had 1 5-star book, 2 4-star books, and 1 3-star book. So the first book that I'll be talking about, which is a 5-star read, is Fire by Christa. Oh my god, I loved this book. I tried reading it in the summer and I just wasn't in the mood for fantasy, so I put it down, picked it back up in September, and read it in 2 days. I devoured it. It was even better than Graceland. In my opinion, I think the pacing was better. I loved the characters in Graceland, but I loved the characters in Fire even more. This book had me feeling all types of things. Normally, I find myself liking characters or plot, but with this book, I genuinely loved the plot and the characters. Christa really knows how to write some really good characters, especially in this series. They're just freaking unmatched. And the world is so cool. The fantasy world that she creates in these books is just so magical feeling. I was super into it. I devoured it. Pacing, characters, plot were all wonderful. I can't remember a negative, honestly. I can't remember, and I gave it 5 stars, so I don't think there was a negative. The first 4-star book that I read was Salt by Hannah Moskowitz. I did a video review on this. I will link it down below. This book was freaking wonderful. I loved this book. I have a couple complaints, which is that I felt like it could have been longer. I felt like it is a fantasy book, but it's really not in the way that it's written. It's more written like a contemporary that takes place in a fantasy setting. It's very relationship based and it's very based on characters, which was still great. Honest to God, some of the best sibling relationships I've ever read in my entire life. If you want more of my thoughts, I'll link it down below. But I highly recommend you read it if you love siblings who really, really love each other. The next 4-star book that I read was Terminal by Kathy Reichs and Brendan Reichs. Y'all, this book has been on my TBR for 2 years. More than that, maybe. I finally finished the series. It was wonderful. I loved it, but I did notice some problematic elements. I haven't read one of these books in the series in a long time. It's been a while, and I've definitely become more aware in the past couple years. They don't handle fat characters well, especially one of their main fat characters. It's kind of weird dynamic because there's definitely some fat phobic comments, which is weird because there's a fat main character. So it's just a very odd dynamic. It's definitely one of those series that I wouldn't necessarily recommend now because I can't vouch for what was in the first 3 books. And I'll always love the series. It'll always have a special place in my heart. I still love the storyline. I think it has a wonderful storyline, wonderful plot. I loved how it wrapped up overall, but definitely, some problematic elements. And the last book that I read in September, which was the 3-star read, was The Bungalow Mystery by Carolyn Keene. Nothing really wrong with this. Of the Nancy Drew books that I've read so far, it was just I wasn't super invested in it. I didn't have a super fun time reading it. It was just Okay, on to October and what I read. So, in the month of October, I read 1 3-star book, 5 4-star books, and 1 5-star book. So, it was a really good reading month, to say the least. Shout out to audiobooks. Really saving grace this month. First book that I read this month was Supernova by Kazuo Kibuishi. I hope I'm saying his name right. If I'm not, apologies. But this is the eighth book in the Amulet graphic novel series. Love this series. It's so good. It's so graphically appealing, and the plot is really cool. That's it. That's the tea. Like, it's a wonderful graphic novel series. The plot's really good. The characters are honestly pretty fleshed out, and it's the most stunning continual graphic novel series I've ever read. The first 4-star book this month, which was very interesting. This is the one I'm going to talk about the most, because this was very interesting. I did not expect to like it as much as I did. But that is Providence by Caroline Kepnes. Now, Kepnes? I don't know. I have not read her other series, which is You. I know there's a sequel to that book. Hidden Bodies, I think. Something like that. Never read anything by her. So this is my first dip into her writing. I really enjoyed it. I really kind of loved it. The reason I have a lot of interesting thoughts is because this has a pretty low rating on Goodreads. And I was like, I had the audiobook and I really wasn't feeling anything else at the moment. So I was like, let's just give it a shot and see how it goes, you know? I had my eye on it when it was released earlier this year. So I was like, let's just give it a shot. Let's see how it is. And most people don't like it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty alright. The characters were very interesting. It was a very interesting dynamic because basically it's about this boy who gets kidnapped when he's like something crazy young, like in his early teens. And then he returns, like, years later as a grown man, but he hasn't developed. Like, he was stolen and he, like, became this science experiment. I think this was all in the blurb on the book. If not, I'll put, like, spoiler warning earlier on. But it's very interesting. So he comes back, like, not really mentally at, like, adulthood. And then it jumps forward even more. So the time jumps were very, very interesting. The pacing was really cool, I thought. I thought it definitely added to it. It wasn't a thing I was expecting, but it was really neat. Like, I was expecting him to, like, come back and then, like, his life continue from there. But it jumps forward again, and it's, like, very, very interesting pacing. The audiobook has 3 different narrators because you get 3 different points of view, which I also thought was interesting. I thought if it had been a one, like, POV, it wouldn't have been as good, but having 3 different ones all around this situation made it very, very interesting, and I liked all the different viewpoints. And I liked how the characters kind of went through phases where they weren't really great people. One of the narrators, it was just like, wow, you suck. I thought everybody in the book learned something, and it was an open-ended ending, but not so much that it leaves too much to the imagination. It wasn't like The Giver where it was like, okay, but like really what's gonna happen now? Like what is gonna happen? You get like an ending, but there's like, okay, but more is being talked about happening type of thing. I liked it. I thought it was solid. I thought it was an interesting concept. The reason it wasn't 5 stars was because you don't ever get resolution as to why he is the way that he is. Like, why he became this science experiment. Like, you never find answers. So for that end of it, I thought it was very unsatisfying. But not so much where I couldn't live with it. It was just very interesting to me. The next 4-star book that I read was Book Love. I don't know who this is by. Debbie Tung, I think. Debbie Tung. I'll put the cover somewhere. Really enjoyed this. It is a very cute graphic novel about book lovers and all of the relatable things that a person who loves books goes through. And I loved it because it explores not just like the consumerism end of buying books and all that stuff and owning books, but it also talks about borrowing books and borrowing books from people and libraries. And it didn't feel like a one-sided kind of thing. It felt like we were exploring multiple different sides of people who love books. So I really liked that, and it was just cute, relatable content. Recommend it if you're looking for a super short, cute book on people who love books. The next book that I read that was a 4-star book is More Than a Princess by E.D. Baker. My woman coming through again. If you are new to my channel, I love E.D. Baker. She is a middle grade fantasy author, and I've been reading her books since I was a middle grade age. And they're just always so much fun and heartwarming. Just such lovely books. This one is about a girl who is half fairy, half Pedrassi, which is like, they're like described as like these mountain people. Basically, she has to go on this quest to kind of stop some feuding other kingdoms, and it's very, very fun. Always fun. If you've read an E.D. Baker book before, you know what I'm talking about. A big, big takeaway from this book was you reach a point in the book where she gets this one kingdom and she starts being described as plump. And she's like, what are you even talking about? Because her people are described as like kind of short and stout. Like they're not very tall and long, and like they're described as more compact people. She was shaped more like that, and she just always thought, well, that's just the way my people are, that's how I am. And then she goes to this one kingdom, and then she's described as plump, and she needs to start wearing all of this fashion that makes her look slimmer, and she's like, what are you people talking about? Like, what even is this? So like a couple things, cool takeaways was she's described as something other than average, and she has no problem with her body, which is really, really great. You have several comments from people in this kingdom who like ridicule her for her look or her weight or whatever, and it's seen as a bad thing. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand about comments about fat people. You can have comments, negative comments about fat people. They happen in real life. It's a real life thing that fat people have to deal with. It's a real thing. It happens. But you have to have it be a negative thing. You can't have it be your main character who's supposed to be a good person describing someone who is fat or plus size or whatever as disgusting and revolting just because they're fat. I think a lot of people don't understand this discussion. And when these comments came up, her people close to her, people who cared for her or whatever, the good people in the books were like, no, don't listen to them. You're fine the way that you are. You're beautiful. Ignore them. They're irrelevant. And like, I just was living for it. And that's just how you are supposed to deal with fatphobic comments. Next two books I'm going to talk about together because they're in the same series. Don't have many thoughts on them, which is The Slippery Slope and The Grim Grotto, both by Lemony Snicket. These are the 10th and 11th book in the series of Unfortunate Events. I read these through audiobook because, again, audiobook saved my life this month, and they were great. I'm really loving the storyline. I really loved the discussion in The Grim Grotto. It was about how people aren't black and white, how a good person, you think someone is a good person, can still do very bad things, or a bad person could kind of do good things, and how there is no sometimes definitive line on what makes a good person and a bad person a bad person. Loved that discussion. It was very interesting. Also loved in The Slippery Slope, I love having Sunny's point of view. That was really fun. I love Sunny, and I love how she's really grown. Like, her character and like her age has grown over these like past couple books, definitely. And it's just been really fun. It's been really fun to enjoy. Last book that I read in the month of October was The Disconnected by a bunch of people. This is a poetry, short story, anthology book. Lighting! What the... Apologies for this lighting. It keeps going crazy. This is a poetry, short story, anthology book by a bunch of poets and authors, and it is a very cool concept where it has a short story and then a poem, and then the poem relates to the next author's short story, and so on and so forth. Very cool concept. If my lighting would stop. The freak are you doing? It's very neat, very cool concept, but was just kind of fell flat. I didn't connect to any of them really. I really liked the concept, liked the layout, liked a few of the stories, but overall it just was okay. If you like poetry, if you like short stories, if you like poetry books that flow, I highly recommend this. Still recommend it, just wasn't my thing. So those are all the books that I read in September and October. If you have any thoughts, please let me know down below. That's all I got. Running out of time. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope I shall see you in the next one. Bye!